Hello, Western Civ 104. Welcome to week 13. And as you see, we're moving right along in the semester here. We don't have that much longer to go. And so I just want to remind all of you that right now, I am taking late work automatically, okay? But I am letting you know that I will always, when I grade, if the work's not turned in, I put a 0. And then if you're going to get to that assignment, you'll get full credit for it if you do the assignment correctly. What I just want to remind you, though, is, again, like I did talk about this last week, is if you're so behind and we're going to get to the end of the semester, you can't give me 50 assignments on the last week. So, try to make a realistic assessment of what you can do. I mean, we are in a crisis, so every student has a different set of circumstances to deal with. Some of you are stuck at home with kids you have to help out with in the middle of this, stressing about bills, or you're considered an essential worker and you're out, but that's also very stressful. I mean, the list can go on. And so, any excuse you would have is understandable to me, and as I've mentioned, it's not even necessary for you to try to explain yourself right now why you're having any struggle with keeping up with school. But we still have to come to terms with reality that once the end of the semester comes, the grades are what they are. And so right now I need you to communicate with me if you're if you're having a difficult time with this and you're not sure where you're going to end up grade wise. Talk to me now when we still have time to figure out how to assess what to do, because I cannot just instantly at the end of the semester try to fix several students that are way off the chart. Okay, again, it's very understandable, but we still got to work with many different things right now. So contact me, please, if necessary. Okay. Okay, and so just that's about all I'm going to say. Just in terms of this week's content, you'll notice that I mainly just have the videos, clips from crash courses and other videos, not a lot of lectures. And I just thought that this was appropriate. Sometimes it's good to mix up a little bit for you, the type of setting of the way you're getting your information. But I also just want you to think about this, looking at like this section. This class is called Western Civilization. And the first week I mentioned that in the past, a Western Civilization class would have been presented as the West is the best. If it wasn't said that overtly, it would have been implied. And then there's also been this kind of trend to say that the West is pure evil. And so what I've always tried to do when it comes to how I teach is to bring nuance, to kind of give you a reason in this class to understand what information is accurate, but also like why various sides of a spectrum would perceive this information in the way that they do. So here again, I just want to remind all of you that, look, and I think I mentioned this in some of my lectures, but I just want to kind of restate this. You can have, let's say, a very good uncle, an uncle that's good to you, and find out that he abused his wife the whole time, your aunt. And it's really hard to process because two things can happen at the same time. A person can be really good to you, to some people in one setting, and really bad to somebody else in another setting. And in our minds, it's not easy to process when those two things can happen at the same time. And it's because human beings are complex. Human beings have some defaults and weaknesses in certain places that are manifest very clearly, and in other places, the best comes out, or there's just pure manipulation. So there's several factors that can try to explain that kind of thing. Western civilization produced many, many amazing things historically for certain parts of the world, and it had a very, very negative effect on other parts of the world. And those two things happened at the same time. Thomas Jefferson wrote things that really, really are considered beneficial for modern American thinking. But he also owned slaves. And he didn't just own slaves, he was a bad slave owner. And if you look at research on him, even when he died, he did not set his slaves free, and families, married couples with children, actually were separated on the slave block after he died. Which, by the way, George Washington, who also had slaves, at least set in his will to free them when he died. Which, I mean, that's also, but do you get what I'm saying? So two things happening at the same time, and the people who are on the negative end of that spectrum have a right to simply articulate the negative aspect of that person. If you are abused or treated terrible by somebody, you're not obligated to try to understand how nice they are to somebody else. Okay? And for those of you, when we experiencing something are experiencing something from a point of privilege or positivity, it's really hard to think how to treat somebody bad who may have not only been good to you, but actually went out of their way to help you when you were having times of need. So it's complex. It's complex. This is for real talk, right? So I just want us to think about that as you look at this history and try to process the totality of the legacy of Western civilization, okay? And I mentioned this also in my 105 class. This was something I always mention, and this approach to history and events is something that I think is very helpful every time you're looking at history and events. There are, when people commit to an ideological spectrum that you have to vilify something 100% of the time, or celebrate it, or support it 100% of the time, that's about as silly as trying to do that with anything and anybody. Sometimes I am really wrong. There's times in my life that I don't look that I did not shine on the side of right in the way that I did on other times. And in Christianity, this is called imperfection, right? That's also a part of Islamic concept. In Judaism, the evil inclination and the positive inclination. And there's this weird kind of idea that in the judgment, you get judged by the sum totality of what you are. And, but you don't need to be religious to understand this, do you? Right? So, okay, that's all I'm going to say anymore on this. I hope you're all having the best time that you can under these circumstances. And again, please always reach out to me if you need anything. All right, be well, everybody, and be safe. And here we are.